Welcome to the SmartCell Insight, known as SCI demonstration series for Release 3.6. In this demonstration, I will show you the interface functionality and capabilities of the Wireless LAN Report. I will cover the information displayed on how the output can be filtered for only specific periods of time and specific devices. So let's get started. Let's first log into SCI. And once we first log in, as you can see, it takes us to the Overview tab. Details about this tab are covered in a different video within this series. If you'd like to know more details about this particular tab, you can view that video. In this particular video, we're going to concentrate on the Wireless LAN tab, so let's go ahead and click on it. So you can see here up at the top left, we have an overview, which provides the total of active SSIDs based on the filtering dates that we have selected above. Naturally, this would change if we were to expand out these date range, or any date range change would reflect in this overview tab, providing us the active SSIDs during that time period. We can see a trend of new SSIDs, ones deleted, and provides a quick view of the wireless LAN changes made during the range that we have selected. We can see in the lower left we have the SSIDs added and reflects the clients that have been added based on those additions. And we can see in the lower right of the overview, we can see that there's the SSIDs that have been removed and the net loss or the clients that have been affected by that, in this case 21. The SSID changes over time over to the right provides us details of the SSIDs added and removed along with the effects of the client serviced or removed from that SSID change. Timestamps of the SSID creation and removal is provided along with the wireless LAN name that has been added or subtracted as well. This represents changes made within the date ranges again up at the top right that we see here. Now the default provides us a display of all the APs, SSIDs, and radios that are being reported to SCI. We can adapt that or adjust that by clicking on this down arrow, and we can see all the system names that are being reported into SCI. We can drill down within these and be able to provide us the ability to filter and provide or select unique SSIDs or select unique APs based on the values that we see here. Now the hierarchy that we see developed is that first you have a system name. The next is that you will see any controllers within that system name. Below that, we'll see any domains if they are configured. If there's not a domain configured, we'd go straight to the individual zones that are configured underneath that unique controller. Once we select the controller and then select the domain, underneath the domain, we can see that we have any of the zones that are configured in there. And then from that, we can see any of the access group or the AP groups that we have listed. Now, if we were to select on an individual, we can select on the APs that are associated within that group and be able to narrow it down to literally down to a single AP if we so choose, and allow this report that we have in the wireless LANs to be reflected. I am going to select a larger group. I did want to select that one specifically for you to see the domain, but let's go into College Town and be able to just select that one independently. Once I've selected those values there, we will see that everything that's under this AP, or excuse me, this controller that I've selected would be selected by default. If I were to come over to the right and select individual ones here, only the ones selected in the right pane would be displayed. We can also narrow down to the SSIDs if we so choose. This will give us an updated list of the SSIDs that are represented by the controllers that we have selected above. Only the SSIDs of the controllers that are selected will be listed. We can also narrow down to the radios, and specifically from 5G or 2.4, depending on what type of filtering you want to perform. In this case, we're just going to select College Town and the only controller that is controlling that and push save. Now, as a result, it does provide us details or displays information specifically to the APs that we have selected based on the filtering that we just performed. So now that we've selected the APs that we want to look at, we can scroll down in this report and see what other details it provides. So the next thing we see is the top 10 SSIDs by traffic. This is in a graphical view, as you can see, and if we can hover over each one of these, it'll represent the name of that SSID as well as the data that that SSID has provided. Each one of these are clickable, so if we were to click on that, it would take us to the details page of that particular SSID and be able to provide us more granular information on that. We are concentrating on the wireless LAN tab in this particular video, but there are other videos in this series that would provide you more details of the clickable information that we have within this graph. Over to the right, we see it's in a line graph form, and each one of these colors are color matched to the pie chart you see over to the left. Currently, right now, we see that the top two are only being displayed, and that's by default. If we were to want to add any of these other that are in the pie chart over the left, we would hover over the box and click it, which makes that box a solid color, and then it will be added to the line graph that we see here. Now, dates can be changed based on the value that we have up at the top here, and we could select a month if we so choose. Let's go ahead and do that. And once we push apply, we would see that this pie graph as well as the line graph would change based on the new date range we've selected. Now do remember or know that this is in a demo environment, and so we would see some irregular behaviors when it comes to the data here. So just be aware of that and know that it's kind of a demo environment that we are showing here. So once we scroll down past that, we can see the top 10 SSIDs by client count as well. As the title implies, this is providing us the SSIDs when it comes to the one that has the most clients that are associated with it. Again, similar to the other graph that we saw, we can hover over each one of these and get a representation of the data throughput, or the amount, excuse me, of clients that are associated with it. And then over to the right, we can see a line graph that would represent the changes of those client counts based on a time range. Now, one thing I like to point out is that in this time range that we see here, these are broken out into per hour. We could also select a day or a week based on the date range that we have selected here. However, if we were to use more of a granular day or today or within a week, we would see that we would be able to provide more granular details such as 15 minutes or an hour depending on the date range that we have selected up here. Also note that because I changed the day range within this particular graph, it does not affect the others. So if you're wanting to be able to have these match, you will need to go into each one of these graphs and be able to change that based on the value that you want. Now, as we move down in this graph, we can see our next one is active SSIDs by trend. Now, within your environment, generally this should remain stable unless build-outs are taking place or if there's known changes within the environment. This is providing you a warning if you are seeing a fluctuation here that you're not expecting, and allow you to be able to go in more detail and be able to provide more granular understanding of what might be going on in your environment. Also, this can be compared to predictions, and it can display timestamps if major outages such as power or data loss happens as well. We can see here in this particular graph, we do have some fluctuations here. And again, this is a demo environment, so many things take place within this environment that might not necessarily reflect a normal environment that you would be displaying or collecting data from an SCI perspective. Now, as we scroll down to the next graph that we see here, we see that it's by total volume, by total traffic volume. And as a result, we can see the values changing depending on the time of day as well as the fluctuations of membership or SSID clients and so forth. Each one of these, if you hover over them, you provide you with a granular detail during that time period, similar to the other graphs that we see as well. We can do the same thing when it comes to the SSID counts above. In this particular, we can plan for scalings as well as peak usage times that happen within the collection environment, and we can see it from a monitored usage total of traffic within this graph. Irregularities can also be effectively seen using this graph, as well as a very predictable view and be able to see anomalies and be able to see that those could be quickly discovered. As we can see here, we can see as the time goes on, and we can see somewhat of a predictable environment that we see here. However, if there are some major changes here, we can look at and be able to do more research to find out what might have changed. And we can see that graph here. Again, being a demo environment, we see some changes that happened. So as you can see, as we drill down or scroll down further, we can see many of the information that we saw in a graphical form is now in a table form and provides us more granular detail of what exactly is taking place from the title that we see here. In this case, we see top SSIDs by traffic, and as a result, we can see the top index and see the actual receive, transmit, as well as the total traffic, along with the clients and the APs that are associated with that particular SSID environment. So it's important to note that both tables you see here, the top SSIDs by traffic as well as the top SSIDs by client count, both tables are not mutually exclusive because you can have many clients, but it does not possibly equate to a higher data rate. In this example, where we're listing or seeing a college town SSID environment, we can see that we would have a large count as well as a good chance of having a large data rate. However, there's other environments where we might have a large SSID client count, but not necessarily a high throughput or a high data rate within that particular environment. An example of a different environment may be something like a church, where it's limited times where the clients would be connecting during the week possibly, and in limiting usage during services or other events. Overall, this provides the total bandwidth usage of the SSIDs displayed and provides a quick understanding of the bandwidth being used by your top users. At the top of each table, you can see that it provides you, based on the SSIDs displayed, top 10, top 50, or so forth, the amount of data that those particular top ones consume, opposed to the total usage that is being used within the environment. Each table will have a representation like you can see here. As I mentioned, the top 10 is being displayed, but you can go in and change it to the top 20, top 50, and top 100 if you so choose, and that data would be updated accordingly. Do know that even though you are selecting the top 10 and top 50, again, this is specific to the filtering that you have performed up at the top. It will only reflect the SSIDs represented in the APs that we have listed there. Even though you've selected more than the top 10 at the top, you will see that only 10 are displayed in the table. For you to see the additional tables or the additional SSIDs, you will have to click through the arrows you see at the bottom of the table. I think it's also important to point out that if I change the top 50 or change the top values in one of these tables, it does not reflect in the other. So if we want it to match, again, we'll need to manually select that in the other table itself. Now, once we go back up to the top here, we can see also, once we've generated this report and customized it, we can actually go and download it. Our choices for download would be either a CSV format or a PDF format, depending on what you need. Now, if these are reports that you're going to have often, such as in this case, we filtered down to a specific area or location, we can actually go in and save this filter as well. We can go in there and click on a new, and at that point we could put in a name of this. So let's do and push create. And as a result, we see that this is being represented by a saved report now known as College Town. Now, if I were wanting to go back to the default behavior or the reset, I would simply click on the gear here and push reset. And that would take me back to the default values that we see when we first clicked on the Wireless LAN tab, meaning that all APs, SSIDs, as well as radios that are being reported to SCI are now in this report that we see here displayed. We can always go back to that particular filter we created by clicking on this report here, and then just simply go to the College Town tab that we have created. And we're back to the report that we were looking at earlier. We can go in and edit these as well. We can simply delete this one. So if we were to push delete here, it'd remove this particular value. If we will confirm it, we can push confirm and we'll delete it. And just know that all it did is deleted the report. It does not reflect or change the current values that we have selected for this reporting page. We can go into it and resave it if we wanted to with a different name, or if we were to even select one, let's go ahead and select the College Town one that was listed there. I think that was the actual one I created originally. And I can go into the gear here and push update. And this could actually update the values. So if I were to go in here and change the radio, such as change and select certain unique SSIDs that I would want to be reflected in that reporting now, it would allow me to be able to update that information and be able to provide it a new name for it, or just simply be able to just update it with the new criteria that we have selected here. And lastly, I'd like to show you on this tab is the schedule button. So over to the left here, we see we can click on schedule, and then that provides us the ability to enable or create schedules of this reporting, meaning that if we create a new schedule, we can put in a name. We can select the format similar to we had with the download options, which is the PDF or the CSV format. And then we can select the repeat frequency, such as a daily report, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly. If we were to select a weekly report, you can see that it can ask us what day of the week we'd like that report to be generated. In this case, we'll select Monday. We'll select at 9 a.m. in the morning. And then we would put in the email addresses of the users we would like this report to be emailed to. Now, some of the unique values I'll show you when it comes specifically to the quarterly and the yearly, these are based on the calendar years. As you see, it does not ask you the options when it comes to those particular reports, and it will just simply do it on a calendar year. So the quarterly and the yearly would be a fixed dates that we see here, and it would simply generate those on the next day after that quarterly time period has passed, or on a yearly selection as well. If we were to select a year, then that means that on January 1st, it would actually send out that report from the previous year if we so choose. Now, once we've selected those scheduled reports, you can see here we can actually manage it. So I could check the box next to this. I could disable and delete this report as I so choose. So if it's a case that we wanted to stop that report, delete it, or be able to delete this one and generate a different type of report, we can do so. And it's just the management of your scheduled reports that you have listed here. And with that, it completes our demonstration of the Wireless LAN tab within the SCI environment. Do know that there are other videos within this series that describes and explains more detail of the other tabs that you see here over to the left. We encourage you to go look for those videos if there's a specific tab you'd like to have more details about. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video and hope you have a good day.